Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ruby, this is Ruby Red, and today we're playing another round of my TBR game, tic-tac-TBR. Before we begin, I'd like to apologize if you can hear any background noise coming through. I'm using my tiny mic to attempt to minimize any of that, but we're still adapting to my new tiny house situation. The game works like this. If you don't know, I pick 9 random prompts, put them into a 3x3 grid, and then throughout the month, I try and read books that are going to fulfill those prompts in order to get a 3 in a row. This way I can play a TBR game and still be a mood reader. So first we're going to talk about the prompts from November, and then we're going to talk about what I'm doing for December, because I think I've done this the last 2 years. It's a little bit different, okay? Okay. Somehow every time I sit down to film this, I feel ready to talk about my next month's prompts, but I was like, wait, what did I read this month? I'm not ready. So hopefully I'm ready now. The prompts from November were recently added on Goodreads, an author I've read from before, the oldest book on my TBR, an audiobook, an intimidating book, a fantasy book, a book by a Black author, a book with a pink cover, and a book from Libby. And before I tell you what I read, I have an extra reward, and I'm gonna use it for November because it won't make sense for me to use it in December. I earned a reward playing a different TBR game this month, and you're gonna have to watch the jokes vlogs to get the deets on that, but I have a double up reward in addition to my reading day reward that I had for November. I did use my reading day and it was really nice. And I'm also going to be using a double up. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page about that because I don't know what order I'm going to be posting these, okay? Okay, so the first prompt that I fulfilled in November was an author I've read from before, and that was The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. I read this, well, one of my friends read this to me, and I have, in fact, read it before. So, in that way, I've read this author before. The next prompt we're going to fulfill is a fantasy, and for that I read The Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. That was a reread for me. I love that book, and it's a fantasy, so hooray. Then I read a book that was intimidating to me, and that was The Arbornaut by Meg Lohman. Intimidating because I have owned it for so long, and I really hyped it up for myself when I first found out about it and wanted to read it, and then I just like kept not reading it because I didn't want to be let down. So that was intimidating, and I read it. Then I read an audiobook, and that was the book 0 Days by Ruth Ware. And that was pretty fun. Then I read a book by a Black author. I have actually, listen, I haven't finished it yet, but I'm going to finish it by the end of the month. And that is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. And finally, I read a book with a pink cover and a book that I got from Libby. This is our double up book. And that is Mr. Wrong Number by, I forget who, but it has a very pink cover. And it was from Libby. And it was not very good, I gotta be honest. But there you go. That's all of the books that I read. And so I actually got three in a row. Wow. I didn't expect that. I'm always surprised. Wow. Feels good. Okay, now let's talk about December. So instead of picking 9 random prompts and trying to fulfill those, it's the last month of the year, and there are some books that I want to read before this all ends this year. That's all. And usually I would just pick 9 books that I still want to get to and shuffle them and put them in the board, and that's how I play December. So it's a lot more of an actual TBR, and it's less play alongable, but that's what I like to do. A lot of people do like a holiday edition of their TBR game or pick a new game or do something different for the holidays, so that's sort of the vibe. But because of what I'm doing with that, I don't necessarily want to pick 3 rewards because the rewards won't apply to December. So I don't really know what to do about the 3 rewards I've earned. I can just save them for January and then start the year off with 3 rewards, or I could just give myself like 3 reading days in the month. We'll see what happens. I doubt I'm going to be able to squeeze 3 reading days into the month. But so if you have an opinion on what I should do with the rewards, please let me know in the comments. Like, is it fine to just like bring those into the new year? Is that like a nice little treat, or should I just let it go and there's no rewards and that's fine? Or what? Okay, here's what's going on in December. For the first time, I'm participating in a little bit of a friends faves situation. I've seen these things go around and I've never really felt drawn to participate. But this year I have gotten a list of favorite books from 7 of my friends, and I'm going to try to read one of each of their favorites from this year in December. And the ones that I don't get to, I will be reading like in 2024 at some point. But I just thought it would be fun to like get a bunch of them in 1 month. So that's what I've done. I've picked one favorite from each friend and put those into the mix. I'm going to shuffle that up for the board, but there's only 7 of them. So that leaves me with 2 spaces, and I have picked 2 prompts to go into those free spaces. So I don't know how the board is going to look, but I do know everything that's going to be on it. And the one sort of caveat is that if I'm able to get a hold in or more easily read a book from a friend that is not the one that's on the board, like for example, Lizzie from Lizzie's Literary Life had a bunch of favorites that I was really interested in reading, and so I'm putting one of them on the board, but if I read a different one, I'll be able to cross that spot off. Like it's more of a Lizzie spot than the book that I've actually picked. Does that make sense? Hope so. Okay, so let's take a look at my December TBR board. The first prompt is actually one of the prompts, and that is arc. I want to read one more arc at least before the end of the year. I made a whole vlog this summer getting my NetGalley ratio into a better place, and then I absolutely trashed it again. So I'd like to read another arc this year. The next spot on the board is going to be Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, I have been wanting to read this book since before the adaptation was going to come out, like years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And everyone was reading it and I wanted to read it and I never did. And then I sort of stopped wanting to, but I've started to see more people read it. I feel like I saw a lot of people read it for Victober, and Lizzie really loved it. So I'm interested in reading it. I have not had the best luck with Gothic classic literature, but is this a Gothic book? I don't know. But I want to read it. So maybe I will. I'll read it eventually. The next book is Open Throat. This one, I was actually personally recommended this book by Kayla, and it also made it into her favorites list. So when she recommended it to me, I actually borrowed it immediately from the library, and then I just didn't read it. Sorry, Kayla. But I was really intrigued. I think it's about a tiger who is questioning their gender identity, and there's like the tiger escapes the Los Angeles Zoo and there's some sort of disaster going on, so the tiger is like dealing with a natural disaster and internally like trying to figure out who they are. Sounds really good. It's a pretty short book. I think it just sounds like it's like weird and fun. All right, the next book on here is Eve, How the Female Body Drove 200 Million Years of Human Evolution. It's kind of a like new origin of species book about like women, the female body, I guess. And I was interested in this when I first started seeing it pop up. And I had heard about this book before Adriana read it, and then it was one of her favorites. So now I'm even more interested to read it. It's a kind of big nonfiction book, but it sounds really good. The next one is another shorty, and that is Galatea by Madeline Miller, who wrote Circe and The Song of Achilles, which Circe is my #1 favorite, actually my only favorite Greek mythology retelling sort of thing. So I'm interested to read another Madeline Miller, and it is really short. So thanks, Danielle, for picking a short book. The next one is one I'm so excited about. Oh my gosh, that's Jade City by Fonda Lee. I've been wanting to read this series for a while. I feel like I've watched a bunch of friends read and love it, And now Bookstara Read Along is going to be reading the whole series next year. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait long enough to participate with them when they actually read it, but I'm hoping to read Jade City in December, partially so that I can read sequels for Squash That series in January, but also because it was actually fave. One of. So that's exciting. Okay, next we have my second prompt, which is to start a series. So Squash That series is happening again in January. It's going to be a really long, really intense, really fun round. I'm pretty sure I'll link, everything's linked below, okay? But I don't read a ton of series. Like some people are out there in the Squash That series Discord saying, "Oh, I have 20, I have 30 series that I'm in the middle of," or like more. And I don't have that. I have like 7 or 8, maybe. So yeah, I want to start some new series so that I can more easily participate, because when you only have a couple of options of series, it can be hard to like fit some of the prompts. So yeah, start a new series is on the board. Okay, the next book is The Last Chinese Chef, which is one of Martine's favorites. When Martine read this way, way earlier in the year, I was like, wow, I really want to read that. And I never did. And now here we are, and it is one of their favorite books from the whole year. So I'd really like to read it now. And then our final prompt, our final book in this whole year is Wolf Song by TJ Klune, which I didn't think I would be here. I didn't think I would be here putting Wolf Song on my TBR. I loved The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, and I've had zero interest in any of his other books, pretty much. Like, none of them have appealed to me. So I've just been like, that's fine. I don't need to love everything he writes. But then when Bailey read this and was talking about it, something about how she talked about it was like a little bit different than how I'd heard other people talk about it. And it just kind of intrigued me. So I don't know if this will be a favorite. It's a werewolf romance. And it has some like elements that some people don't like. I know that. And Bailey even kind of warned me about that. But I'm still gonna give it a try and see if I like it. So that's my final TBR of the year. Please let me know if you have any feelings about any of these books, what series I should start, and also what I should do with the rewards. I kind of feel like I'm just gonna let them go. But if you have other ideas for ways that I could reward myself for getting 3 in a row, 3 in a rows, let me know. So thanks so much for being here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you back here soon for another video. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.